for the news that really matters and the uncensored truth. It's time for the Mr. Chris Show Underground News and Commentary.
Well, another week. Here we are, October 15th, and more news, more crazy stuff, and it just keeps coming. So I believe you're on the line, DiamonDan?
Yep, Mr. Chris, I am here.
Great. Sounds good. So there's a lot of things to talk about, but one of the things that happened just today, which I think we'll start off with, is the accidental deletion of a lot of accounts on YouTube of various people. They must have got hacked, I'm assuming. Do you know anything about this?
Yeah, a lot of different webs, or I guess YouTube channels that I and millions of other patriots like to watch just suddenly disappeared today.
Huh. That's odd. Of course, it probably is not anything that YouTube did. It's probably hackers, or it's probably the people themselves, but it's sure kind of funny because it seems to be a lot of what is deemed as conservative shows and channels are instantly gone, and when you go to look at them, it says it's been deleted for either harassment or bullying or something like that.
Yeah, kind of strange. I, on my lunch break today, thought I'd take a look at one of the channels I always follow, and, just like you're saying, it wasn't there. And went to another one, and, that one's gone too.
Yeah, so I do know a little bit about some of the channels, and I think you know a lot more. I think you follow this more. I don't have good connections here where I'm at in this part of the world, but some of the people were announcing ahead of time that there would possibly be issues. They even predicted they might be taken down, and the surprising thing is that it took out a wide swath of people here, not just one or two. It's I don't know if it's the hundreds or thousands, but it's pretty large.
Yeah, it's unknown. I did hear one radio show host that I follow talking on the radio today, this afternoon, and he was, of course, talking about how it's come out that the CEOs of Twitter and Facebook are on the hot seat right now and in the process of being subpoenaed for actively blocking conservative pages and people who are sharing the New York Post story that broke yesterday about Hunter Biden, and so people who are sharing legitimate news stories are being blocked because they're conservative. So that's a problem.
And it's kind of interesting because, first of all, you have to define conservative, and then you have to come up with some sort of criteria that you're using to label it as such and remove it, which to me sounds a lot like discrimination. I mean, does that ring a bell? I mean, using some standard to apply against a person unjustly like that. I think it fits that description, at least it does to me. If nothing else, it's censorship.
Yeah, I mean, who's to determine, the content that is okay and the content that's not? I mean, it's definitely a violation of the First Amendment, free speech. So, yeah, it's an interesting development, and I'm very interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, and the problem is that you had people that were putting out information, having their channel, and now their channel is either suspended or possibly completely gone. I mean, we don't know. Maybe it'll come back at some point. I know they have certain like punishments they do, which sounds kind of stupid, but it's like a little punishment. We're going to make it so you can't do this for a week or that, and it's supposed to, I guess, teach people not to do the wrong thing according to them, what they say is wrong.
Yeah. Now, I know that's true with Facebook. I'm not sure about YouTube, but something happened because there's a lot of stuff missing. This radio talk show host that I was listening to, he was saying a little bit about YouTube, and that, people are noticing that things definitely happen. So I think right in line with Facebook and Twitter, yeah, it's definitely something is going on with YouTube.
Right. Yeah, and, people do quote George Orwell's 1984 and such, and I'm not even sure if actually a lot of people even read it or saw the movie or whatever the case is, but I preferred the unabridged version of the book myself. But anyway, the point I'm drawing is that there is a point in the story which the information, at least at that time, George Orwell, of course, this was written a long time ago. There was no internet or whatever the case was, or even electronic data processing. So they had to actually edit things out of books and papers and publications and such. But the point was that when there were people that fell from grace or they redefined as not good for the state anymore, the people, then they just remove them. And, this really does sound like that, where you just kind of remove things, like Twitter. Things don't go through, tweets are removed. And, I've actually experienced it with you as far as messaging, where you sent a message to me at some point and I never received it.
Yeah, and I sent you a screenshot later of what I had sent you, and you said, yeah, I never got that.
Right.
And it happened to mention somebody's name in that text, and you're a long ways away from me, and all the channels that it had to go through didn't pass somebody's filter, I think.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting. It could be censorship. It could be happenstance. Could be something random. I think we're going to hear the spin on it sooner or later. I don't think the mainstream media can completely disregard what's going on, but I think they'll put a proper spin on it so that way the sheeple will be confident and comfortable that everything's okay. And then they can get back to the real important matters, like, catching up on the Kardashians and things like that.
Well, it's funny you mention that. I was perusing the different news channels today, just on my PC, and I wanted to see what CNN was talking about, and lo and behold, I couldn't find one blurb about the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden story that broke from the Washington Post, the New York Post, and not one mention of it at all. And, of course, you go over to Fox News and it's, everything on the front page is that. You go over to some other places and, yeah, there's a few mentions, but, a couple of them, no, they're not even mentioning it. Why bother?
Yeah. Well, Facebook for sure censored the New York Post to protect Biden. That's so easy to see.
Sure.
But let's get into that then. So what are they actually protecting him from? What are the evils that we're going to find out? Are you aware of them?
Well, yeah. I think that his son, he placed his son using his leverage as vice president into this position with the energy company, Burisma. And the deal, what just came out with the laptop that was found, the deal was he makes, 6 figures or, 7 figures or whatever it is, and Joe gets half.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing, and that's bad enough, but apparently there's something much darker on that laptop, and it looks like Rudy Giuliani has alluded to it. We saw a couple pictures that went around today of his son. It looked like he was sleeping with a crack pipe next to him. and there's some other candid photos, but there's a whole lot more that's coming out.
Yeah, I heard a little mention of that. Of course, some of the things I had exposure to today didn't go that deep into it, but some of the web pages and things that I do look at were touching on that. So, if let us know. What do you know?
Well, like I said, a lot of this is not confirmed, but it will be coming out that according to Giuliani, the pictures that will be coming forth, he describes as not only inappropriate, but downright illegal. And you can read into those statements. You can imagine what that means. There's probably very few things that will come up as illegal. I don't think you're going to see pictures of him evading his taxes. I think this is going to be more centered around what S.S.K. Brown spoke about, the human trafficking. Okay. And I think the kind of stuff that you're going to see that's coming out of there is probably going to be pretty close to horrific.
Wow. I know they've asked, the media has asked Joe Biden about this since it broke, and he's been denying it, of course. But I think the noose is tightening, and it's one thing to say that these emails are false. They've been created by something. Of course, the left is throwing in that it's Russian. It's Russian interference with the election yet again. It's something that Russia planted. It's one thing to fake an email, put some email addresses in there, write some text. But when you have video or you have pictures, I think that takes it to a whole new level, don't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Pictures worth 1,000 words, they used to say, or still do perhaps, for sure. And, the deep state in all of this, there's everything. They're pulling everything out. It's sort of interesting to watch. People always say, well, wouldn't you have liked to have lived in this time or that time, or maybe see this happen, perhaps the birth of the United States, whatever it is, revolution. But what we're seeing right now and what we're living in right now is absolutely historic. And it's not going to be really realized until later. I think a lot of people, of course, are still asleep. They're not awake. It's like they always quote the Matrix of being awake and so on and so forth. So I think we'll go along with that. But no, I think it's historic what's happening. And, you have not seen the rest. Well, the rest of the story will unfold over the next month and a half. According to what I've heard, according to my contacts, there's a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of crazy mayhem that's going to be coming up.
Yeah. In fact, I'm starting to move my schedule around a little bit because I had planned on a few trips and some things in the next 2 weeks. And, we're kind of looking at that and planning accordingly. But, I predicted it the last time we spoke that post-election, November 4th and beyond, I think we're going to see a massive attack against the Electoral College, the actual electorate in that body. Physical attacks on their homes, attacks to them in person, at restaurants, intimidation, physical attacks, and I think it's going to be horrific. And it's you're gonna also have Hollywood and the elite actors and actresses that like to run their mouths.
Sure. And
and I think they're going to be involved in this.
Well, Hollywood, there's plenty of actors and actresses that are on the, quote, of what I've heard called the bad list, which are people who visited the island and so on and so forth. But apparently there's other people that are not on the flight log that are associated with it as well. So apparently more and more of that is going to be coming out. But I think you probably got a an image I sent you earlier, and that was a map showing the expected outcome in the election. Now, of course, this is not official unless this is part of Looking Glass, where they've glimpsed the future. But in short, I just wanted to touch on it to see if this actually does come true, as far as we're going to find out pretty soon here.
Yeah.
But they're showing a lot of red in the United States.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I noticed when I got the image, and it goes ahead and has. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it here.
Yeah,
it has.
Yeah, basically, I mean, there's a couple states we know about that are blue: Washington and California.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, East Coast stuff. But there's a lot in there that is solid red.
Right. So, what was the tab? Do you have it in front of you yet?
Getting there. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what is the expected tabulation here? The final numbers?
So they have the blue states for Biden. They have 207 electoral counts, and 331 for Trump.
Right. And I think I think this is actually pretty representative of how it's going to turn out, according to my sources. Just taking the pulse of the people on the ground, because the polls that you hear about, the polls that are published in the mainstream media, those are done for a reason. But there's actually people going around and doing their other polling that is not published in the mainstream media. And that tells a completely different picture, because there's a lot of people that are Trump supporters who will actually say they're not Trump supporters or answer in the polls a certain way because, fear of persecution. We're back to the Christians in the catacombs.
Sure. I know people like that they'll talk to me about it, off in private and, in hushed tones and whispers. But, for the rest of our constituents and the people that we deal with on a regular basis, they're out there laughing at the jokes and, going along with all the left sort of hyperbole that, just comes along with that. So now there's also, if you're talking about different indicators, there's also a very real social indicator that we're seeing physically when we look at the number of people that are standing in line for some of the Trump rallies. The people who are taking and decorating their boats, not just painting them, but like applying graphics, like professional graphics to their boats, flags of all kinds, Trump flags, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of boats, miles long in armadas, and I've never seen that in my lifetime for any kind of a president or presidential election. And I heard somebody talking about going to one of the recent rallies he had. I don't remember exactly where it was, but they said for 4 miles before they got there, the lines stretched 4 miles, and it was just an unending sea of people. I saw Biden come out Tuesday night for a little town hall meeting. It was supposed to be a rally. There were literally 6 people there. 6 people.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
So what you've said corroborates a lot of things that I've heard through the grapevine. It's pretty amazing. I don't know if you happen to see, there was a little blurb of Nancy Pelosi on CNN, and she was being rather grilled by Wolf Blitzer. Did you happen to catch that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I found it pretty surprising because he was actually wanting real answers, and she was just resorting to subterfuge in order to get around things. And that was pretty remarkable for CNN, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. It showed some character that I didn't know Wolf Blitzer had, but good for him because he called her out, and he said, basically, why are you blocking the stimulus package? Why are you trying to put all this other stuff in there that has nothing to do with feeding the people who aren't getting any paychecks?
Right.
And who literally are begging for food on the street, or having to forego regular meals for their children because you've shut down their businesses, you've shut down their workplaces, and there's no money coming in.
Right. And it's kind of interesting. I've actually met various people, at least in my area of the world, who are very sensible. But you come across certain people and they're, I guess, asleep, just like we were talking earlier. And they just believe the narrative and like, oh, no. So I had a discussion with somebody who was pretty level-headed, and we spoke about masks, and I gave them all the resources that I've come across, and showing documents, including studies in hospitals, like in the UK in 1981, where they actually found that the post-operative infection rate was lower without masks during the surgery than with them. And you have different studies, and there's I don't want to be ranting about masks, but I'm going to quickly say that the masks don't make a lot of sense, and we don't even know long-term use of the mask, if that's actually good for your health. There was a story from years back. I think you've probably seen the Vacation movie. There's I think they mentioned the world's largest ball of string or yarn or something like that. Well, there actually is something like that in the United States. Strangely enough, the older gentleman who created it, he died of emphysema, but it was related to the yarn and the string that he was using to build this thing, which over time caused issues in his lungs.
Oh.
So how do you think, if you're sitting there breathing these masks made in China of unknown materials that are coming apart and going direct into your lungs, do you think that's a really good idea for long term?
Yeah. No, I've for a long time just wondered, how. And there's funny memes about it that you'll come across. They'll show a guy in a full-on contained body suit with a helmet for fighting a contagion, but and then it says, but your bandana is probably good too.
Right. So, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. People should actually go back and watch The Andromeda Strain. That's a good 70s movie that deals with something along the lines of this, but they actually show you in extreme cases how you deal with things. And because a deadly virus is just that, deadly. So really quick on the statistics, besides the CDC numbers of the 6% and how people say, oh no, that's not really true and stuff, it's, the person who crashed in the car and we counted as COVID because, how do we know that the virus didn't run up and grab around the neck and crash the car, something stupid like that.
Right.
But anyway, the statistics that came out recently showed the amount of deaths in the United States. These are CDC statistics that you can look, and there was a September, there's a couple of things that came out in September, but these just came out, and they show that the death rate in the United States between 2020, 2019, 2018, and 2017 are pretty close.
Yeah.
And we haven't completed the stats for 2020 at this point, obviously. But if you extrapolate and estimate based on the last few months, we are still in line or even lower than 2019 deaths. So if this is such a deadly virus, how do you account for those stats?
Well, you don't. And, we've been saying it for a long time. Why are you so afraid of a virus that has a 99.8% survival rate? It's like, get it and get it over with and go on about your lives,
Right. And the mantra is anytime somebody dies that is tested positive, if that's really a true test, and there's whole issues with the testing as well, it's like, whoa, that got them. Well, people die every day, and they seem to want to implant this thought in your head that if you protect yourself, you're not going to die. But if you die, it's because you're going to die of the virus. So you only have two choices, apparently.
Yeah. I think if we weren't in a critical election year with all that's gone on prior to this, all the hatred and the anti-Trump rhetoric and everything we've seen for the last 4 years, if we would have just been in a normal cycle, I think this would have come and gone. And, Obama had to deal with the swine flu, and there were a lot of people that died from that, a lot.
Yeah.
And, they're not out there screaming it was his fault and he didn't do this or did do that or, didn't act soon enough. And, he waited a long time before he did anything. And, but he was well in the middle of his term, so there was no big deal. But, like I'm saying, because we are where we are and our president is who he is and the left is who they are, I think that's why we're seeing the fear-mongering and the, continuation by these governors trying to keep everything closed down and, keep us tied down.
Well, in the last few minutes we have here, I know time flies, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the judge confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett.
Sure.
So have you kept track of any of that?
I have a little bit. It's kind of hard. I'm otherwise occupied during the day when these hearings are going on, but I usually do read about some updates at the end of the day. I do know that pretty soon they're going to have a vote about nomination. But he's done very, very well.
Right. And basically, from what I saw and from what I understand from my sources who watched all the information, so far it's been pretty much a religious witch hunt at this point, because they're very interested in her religion and what the religion is going to do with how she sees things. A judge is supposed to be impartial, and as we know, that is a nice statement, but people are not impartial. As you grow up, as you learn, and your learning is formed by various things, you have certain opinions, and although we try to be objective about things, you definitely have biases. And let me bring it back for a moment to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Well, it's almost like the media wants us to believe that Ginsburg had no bias whatsoever, and she was as neutral as you could be, which is as far as from the truth as you could be, yet they're trying to already pre-crucify Amy.
Sure. Yeah, you touched on it. A judge, a Supreme Court justice is supposed to interpret the law based on the Constitution, not create decisions and judgments and write laws. They're just supposed to interpret. But that's not what the left wants, because they can't get any of their radical agenda passed that way. So they want to pack the court. They want to have justices that make laws and rule from the bench, and that's how they're going to have their leftist utopia, is by doing that. So they want to be sure that they can find anything they can on her to shut her down and stop this, because definitely she is not their type of justice.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, I've looked in her background, and, there were other choices Trump could have gone with. I think that she's okay. There's a couple that people say are actually a little better. But nonetheless, she is very, very intelligent, very learned, and I don't see her being the person that they tried to make her to be, because after all, she actually has a couple of kids adopted, Haitian kids.
Sure.
So they can't really say she's a racist, but I'm sure they would like to do that.
Well, they tried.
So we'll pick it up next time.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
This has been the Mr. Chris Show Underground News and Commentary.